Okay, welcome back. It is 8/4 of 2015. We're going to take a look at an additional element to that first triad for Aristotle by Brentano, the triad of Sophia, signification, and causality. But Brentano did give a little additional information for the formation of a sign model of causality, because we gather at the Da Kunta threshold of dialogue and conversation to form our sign model of causality. And we do that because we want a reference of universality to help us shape that model. And so what is this universality that is supplied intersubjectively at the Da Kunta threshold? And the Da Kunta threshold is the threshold of dialogue at the level of psyche, rather than the composition threshold, which is dialogue at the level of logic and rationalism. It's more psychognosy or psychognostic work that Brentano emphasizes, so he wants to emphasize Aristotle's Da Kunta threshold of dialogue at the level of psyche. And it's at this threshold of the Da Kunta threshold that we're going to form our sign model of causality out of our classified signs that have been lifted up beyond the level of topoid to signification and partitioned classification of signs. And so we form the causality sign model, but we need a reference of universality. We need a reference of universality to give us that overarching framework to enclose all of the significations. Now, for Brentano, from our continuum series, we learned that universality is what he calls sui generis, the sui generis backdrop and enclosure of the universality of spirit as sui generis. For Aristotle, it's the backdrop of the divine intellect, and the divine intellect is expressed as universal concepts of substance. Universal concepts of substance. That's universality for Aristotle. That's our reference point when we shape our causality sign model. There are 8 aspects of this universality of substantial definitions. It's a series. It's many-member series of concepts. It does represent the transcendence of an object. They all belong to one abstracto sign genus, one sign genus of the divine intellect. They are directional. The intellectual directional substance informs the sensate substance, and our substantial perception is always extended. But substantial change can occur, because remember, the temporal is inside the divine for Aristotle. Temporal continuum is inside divine intellect for Aristotle. So substantial change can occur. Change exists within God. It is informative. It informs the sensate permanence that underlies all accidental change. And it is advent. A transformation of substance occurs abruptly for Aristotle after the preparation of accidental changes. So it is an advent type change. If there's ever a change in the substance of divine intellect as the universality, it's abrupt, it's vertical, it's a vertical advent cut. But it is all about intellectual directional sense, or intellectual directional substance for Aristotle. That is the meaning of universality. It's a universal intellectual directional sense that we apply to all sensate reality, and it is expressed in a many-member series of concepts that reflect that intellectual universal directedness. But it is basically intellectual directional sense expressed in a series of concepts. And those are called substantial definitions for Aristotle. It's a universality of a collective of substantial definitions. And we find and we raise up those substantial definitions out of the classified signs. So we've got another level of the evolution of the lexical network. We've gone from thing to topoid of place or generalization. from the topoid generalization to signification, from signification to classified signification, and now from classified signification to the actual universal substantial definition. So now we go from classified signification to substantial sign definition. So there is a progression of lexical network within Aristotle before we even address interrelatedness and the formation of a sign model of causality. We have a universality workspace of reference which contains the substantial definitions of the raised up classified significations to concepts of universal, substantial, directional sense of substantial definition. So we've got a, what is that, a fourth level? Let's see, we got thing, topoid, sign, substantial definition. No, that's really five. It's thing, topoid, sign, classified sign, substantial definition. There's 5 levels we've gone through now with Aristotle. 5 levels. Things, topoids, signs, classified signs, substantial definitions. That's 5. So we reach the 5th level of our lexical network of content. We now have a lexical network of content that represents universality. It's kind of posited as a third person, a working third person at the Da Kunta threshold. There's you and there's I. There's the two of us together in dialogue over signification and the modeling of causality. And while we engage in dialogue, we've got a third-party workspace, which is a kind of an on-hold workspace where we work on continually building the universality of substantial definitions, of raising classified signs to substantial definitions. So universality is intellectual for Aristotle. Universality is intellectual. It's intellectual, directional substance. Intellectual, directional substance. It's not a metaphysical entity of forms in a metaphysical realm. It's an intellectual, directional substance sense, and it is formed as a universality that contains our substantial definitions, which we raise up out of our classified significations. We've gone from the things of sensate reality to the topoids of things in their proper place. And then we took the topoids of things in their proper place, and through dialogue we raised the things in their proper place to true signification of deeper significance. And then we engaged in arranging those into primary concepts and subsystem concepts of classification. We had like a category and everything of that category abbreviated under it as subsystems. And then with our classification sign network, we continue in dialogue to work on modeling a sign model of causality. Well, we need something universal to shape that model. So now we raise classified significations to substantial definition of the universal concept. And that comes through dialectical engagement with reality and dialogical engagement with other thinking and intuitive selves at the Da Kunta threshold. So dialectical work and dialogical work will give us a net return of substantial definitions that raise up our lexical network of classified significations. So classified signification can be raised to substantial definition, and we end up with a singular abstracto sign genus that is the abstracto sign genus that encloses all of the signs that are members of our signification network. There is this enclosure of a universality of an abstracto sign genus.